Have you ever got into trouble trying to do the right thing? If you have, think about Jacob. Now, Jacob did the right thing. Rather than marry out of the truth like his brother Esau, he traveled to the home of a believing relative, Laban, and asked for the hand of his daughter, Rachel. That didn't work out so well. Jacob was tricked by Laban into marrying both Rachel and her older sister, Leah. And the women didn't get along very well. In fact, they acted more like rivals than like family. Now, Jehovah saw what Laban was up to, but he didn't intervene. And Jacob didn't blame Jehovah, as if to say, well, why is this happening to me? I followed instructions. I did the right thing, and look where I am today. No, that wasn't Jacob. Now, later on, Jehovah fixed the matter by giving the law to Israel. You must not take a woman in addition to her sister as a rival wife. Well, that law seems to have Leah and Rachel written all over it, doesn't it? Jehovah fixed the matter. But in the meantime, he did sustain Jacob. He did help Jacob through his trial. Now, a bright spot in all this was Joseph, and he's the subject of our comment today. Jehovah began dealing with Joseph when he was just a teenager, and he gave him 2 dreams. Now, the first dream was about food, sheaves of wheat. His brothers' sheaves bowed down to his sheaf. Now, that was appropriate, wasn't it? Because later on, not only Joseph's brothers, but almost everyone in the known world was going to look to Joseph for food. Now, the second dream included his father and, strangely, his mother, who had died giving birth to Benjamin. Now, in that dream, the sun, moon, and 11 stars, that would include Benjamin, bowed down to Joseph. Now, there's no record that Joseph ever attempted to interpret that dream, but Jacob and his sons got the point, and they were offended. Jacob kind of accused Joseph of being presumptuous. He said, am I, your mother, and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the earth to you? Now, we won't comment on the fact that Jacob automatically assumed that he was the son in that dream. But by means of the dreams, what was Jehovah telling Joseph? He was telling Joseph that he had something special in mind for him. He had a purpose for Joseph. So what do you suppose the devil wanted to do? Well, the devil wanted to frustrate that purpose. He wanted to keep that purpose from being fulfilled. So Satan must have been overjoyed when he heard Joseph's brothers plotting to put him to death. Would they have followed through with it? Think about Simeon and Levi. They didn't hesitate to mow down all the men of Shechem when one man raped their sister. Now, the oldest of the brothers, 24-year-old Reuben, talks the others into sparing Joseph's life. Now, did Jehovah move him to do that? It could be, but certainly in line with his purpose. So instead of killing Joseph, his brothers sell him to a band of Ishmaelites. Now, I want you to tuck that in the back of your mind, Ishmaelites, because we're going to come back to that a little later. So the Ishmaelites bring Joseph down to Egypt, and he becomes a slave to Potiphar, the chief of Pharaoh's bodyguard. Now Joseph is a slave. What happens 3 years later? His grandfather, Isaac, dies, and Joseph, the slave, can't be there to say goodbye. Kind of reminds us of many of us during this pandemic, doesn't it? But as with us, Jehovah was with Joseph. He was a great success in Potiphar's household until Potiphar's wife accused him of rape, and Potiphar threw Joseph into prison. But we can say that Jehovah was with Joseph because he went to prison. Why can we say that? Prison was probably the mildest form of punishment that Joseph could have suffered. He was a Hebrew slave, and under Egyptian law, Potiphar could have killed him on the spot because of the accusations. Or he could have had Joseph arrested, and the court could have ordered 1,000 lashes. Joseph would probably have died under the lash. Well, that gives us perspective when we read in the Mosaic Law that an Israelite could receive up to 40 strokes of the rod, not 1,000 lashes. This was love on Jehovah's part. He wanted to prevent the Israelites from being cruel like the Egyptians. Now let's use our imagination a little bit. Later on, Joseph interprets a dream for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh makes him his chief advisor. Now imagine, Joseph kneels and receives the signet ring from Pharaoh. He rises and takes a step back. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees someone standing near the throne, someone who's trying to make himself very small. Potiphar, the chief of the bodyguard. I don't know about you, but that possibility makes me smile when I think about it. And can you imagine what happened when Potiphar went home to lunch that day and told his wife, who was now his new boss? I wonder how much sleep she lost over that. Potiphar's wife did a terrible thing, but so did Joseph's brothers. In fact, if the law had been in force, Joseph's brothers would have been put to death for kidnapping. Later, Jehovah made kidnapping a capital offense. He may have had Joseph's brothers in mind when he did that. Now, some think that Simeon masterminded the kidnapping plot, and that might explain why Joseph chose him to stay behind when he sent the rest of his brothers home. Now, let's get back to Jehovah's purpose. Jehovah has a purpose for Joseph, and Joseph brings the family down to Egypt. Now, that's part of the prophecy, but there's more. God told Abraham that his descendants would be afflicted by foreigners for 400 years. Well, Israel left Egypt in 1513 BCE, so when did the 400 years start? 1913. What happened that year? Isaac's half-brother. What was his name again? Ishmael. Ishmael persecuted Isaac. But was Ishmael a foreigner? His mother was an Egyptian slave, and his descendants, the Ishmaelites, had Egyptian blood. Interesting that the Ishmaelites followed in the family tradition by persecuting Isaac's grandson, Joseph. Jehovah didn't incite Joseph's brothers to kidnap him and send him down to Egypt, but he did use the event to carry out his purpose. He didn't always prevent bad things from happening to Jacob, like marrying sisters who didn't get along, or to Joseph, like being falsely accused. He didn't put a hedge around them, but he did help both of them to face their trials every step of the way. He did that for them. He'll do it for you too. So if you ever get in trouble trying to do the right thing, think of Jacob. Think of Jehovah. Jehovah will help you. He will never abandon you.